This episode is sponsored by Command Leadership Mastery Services. To find out more, listen to the end of the episode and check out the show notes.
I thought that I made it. I got all the way to my final oral board, and I completely bombed it.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you to come back and retake that test, multiple promotions and not accepting no.
When they give you suggestions, let's take a really good look at it and don't just say, all right, let's file this away. Let's really consider what they're saying.
Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric, and today I'm joined by the Ray Polk. Ray, thanks for coming on the show, man.
No problem. I appreciate it. I've been an avid listener of your podcast. You put out really great content, and I appreciate what you're doing for the law enforcement community. And I'm very glad to be on here today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's a lot I'm excited about, especially after connecting through the socials, which is, what I like to say is like the positive aspect of social media today. And we can connect people all across the nation and beyond, specifically law enforcement. There's so much that we get down on and so much we should and can be positive and constructive about. And that's where I love being able to talk to another police leader, a couple time zones away out in Texas. So yeah, I'm stoked to have you on and talk about you, your background in policing, your outlook, leadership, wellness, these things that you do outside and alongside policing, because those are all the things that we need to talk more about. So I'm just stoked, man, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. I'm excited as well.
Let's give the listeners a little bit about you, like a little bit about your background, your story.
So my name is Lieutenant Ray Polk, and I work for the Arlington, Texas Police Department. I've been there for almost 19 years. I've been blessed to proudly say that I work for one of the best law enforcement agencies in the country. I don't mean to brag about that, man, but I'm very proud of our department.
It's okay. You should brag.
Well, I feel like it's an honor and a privilege to work for APD. I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas. I grew up in the Forest Hill area. It's kind of like the inner city for Fort Worth. To give you a little bit about my family, 2-parent home, very proud of that. Not a lot of the people that I went to school with could say that, but I'm very thankful for that. Raised as a preacher's kid. My dad is the pastor, and my mother was our choir director. As soon as I could talk, she had me in the choir singing songs. And so faith is very, very important to me. I'm married, got 2 kids, very much a family guy. As far as my personal interests, I love being outdoors, anything outside, fishing, camping, riding horses, as we'll get to in a little bit. I just enjoy nature, and I feel like it's very important to reconnect with nature as a part of coping skills with a high stress job. Yeah, that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Yeah, fantastic. What brought you into law enforcement?
After I completed my undergrad degree from the University of North Texas in psychology, I wanted to help people. And I did that for a short time for a nonprofit agency doing social work. And so that taught me how to talk to people. It taught me how to deal with people in crisis with the mental health population. After wanting a career change, I jumped into law enforcement. And it's a blessing because I was able to transfer those same de-escalation and crisis intervention skills into law enforcement as well. I have a desire to serve. I came into law enforcement with a little bit of life experience. I wasn't just fresh out of school. I was a little older. That was an advantage for me, just bringing some of my experiences with multi-systemic therapy and social work, and just being able to talk people through their problems and things of that nature.
Yeah, I love that. It's something that is front of mind all the time because I did a stint in recruiting and hiring. But when people ask, what they should study, I love hearing these anecdotes that can be shared back, because there are a lot of cops that I know that came from a mental health or social work background. And it makes a lot of sense when you zoom out. Now, for you, when you started in social work, What was missing that you're like, no, I got to do this uniform badge thing as far as affecting and helping people in a different way?
Well, it gave me a better opportunity to serve. I feel like I was making a difference where I was at, but I needed a career change, and I'm very thankful, very grateful to APD for giving me a shot. You know, one of my foundational core beliefs is servant leadership, and feel like I've seen certain things in my lifetime, and I want to be able to help people in those situations to overcome them, to get through them, to work through them. Being a first responder allowed me to get after those goals. I remember being a social worker and having to call the cops because something was going wrong. But with putting on the gun and the badge, it seems like I had the opportunity to serve more effectively in that way. And that's nothing against the social work community. They do a
Yeah.
phenomenal job. It's just that I felt like my calling and my purpose could be fulfilled greater in law enforcement.
Again, from the hiring perspective, and because so many people still hit me up about, wanting to be a cop, how they can show that the best way, how they can articulate that in interviews the best way. And that's where so many times, so many years I've heard, well, I want to do this job because I want to help people. And you hit it right there, right? Like social work, you're absolutely helping people. But for you, when you were in that seat and you were like, man, this is a time when I need the police because this is happening right now and someone's in
Right.
crisis and I can only help them in this way. And I like how you acknowledge that, because for me, it's the same. It's like we all have a spoke of the wheel and we all have to act as a team, so it's like
Hmm.
same team. Like, let's stop fighting about whose problem
That's
it is.
right.
It's everyone's, society's
That's right.
problem or opportunity, if you want to put it that way. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's going to help a lot of young individuals when they are trying to choose their path. And maybe they know police, but they can better visualize like why police, because again, it's like not just helping people, but why in this way, and how in this way is it going to serve you and your individual personal purpose.
Absolutely. And as we speak to the younger generation that are considering law enforcement as a career, I just want to encourage them to stick with it and persevere, because my road was not easy. I'll tell you that. I missed the mark. I bumped my head as I was trying to join the law enforcement community. And I just want to encourage each and every one of you to stick with it, persevere, don't give up. You know, I don't mind being transparent about the mistakes that I made in the hiring process. You can't give up. If you feel like that's your calling, then give it 110% and go full speed ahead, and don't let anything stop you from joining law enforcement.
So you talk about those bumps, and I think that that is so meaningful when people are willing to share that, especially in leadership, because for a lot of people,
Right.
you're an LT, like you kind of made it, but having talked to you and getting to know you better, I know that your humble disposition is not like you've never made it, but you're very grateful. Obviously, you've relayed your appreciation for the career in your department so many times, which is also such a positive thing. I hope that's contagious, because I don't think that we do that enough in law enforcement. The grass is always greener and there's always all these things
Right.
going wrong.
Right.
What are some things that stick out to you, maybe in the hiring process or in your career, that were really impactful that you do like to share with your people or people that reach out to work with you?
While I was going through the hiring process, everything was going well. I was going one step at a time, and I thought that I made it. I got all the way to my final oral board, and I completely bombed it. I did, and it was totally my fault.
Mm.
And I could see by the panelists' face that I messed up.
Mm.
So they told me, "Hey, we're not going to pass you through at this time. You're not going to be able to join the team." And I was totally devastated. I had a phone call with my dad a couple of days later, and I said, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, what do you think? And he said, son, just call him back and try again. And so it just so happened that when I called the recruiter, Louis Cogashaw, who's a dear friend of mine to this day, he said that they had an individual to drop out of the class that was getting ready to start in 2 weeks, and he was going to try to hustle a final board so that I could join the team. And that's exactly what happened. I walked into the final board meeting, and I was definitely more prepared. And so they allowed me to join the team, and I was so excited about that. So just because you make mistakes, that doesn't mean that's the end of the road. Uh, I can keep going about some of the mistakes. Some people try to brag about how great they are and about these wonderful achievements, and that's fine, but that's not my story. My story is filled with obstacles and overcoming different stepping stones and trials and tribulations, man. And I just keep it real. I want to be
Yeah.
I want to be honest about my journey, and I think that it can really help people. So, I got on with the police department, and then went through, as I was going through the academy, it was time to take the T-close test, and just so happened to be on my birthday that we took the test. Again, I did not study appropriately. I didn't put the amount of effort that I needed to into it. It was completely my fault, and I was the only person in my class to fail the T-close test on my birthday. And so, I took that on the chin and did what I needed to do in order to pass with flying colors the next time. So if you're expecting this journey to be a bed of roses and for you to just walk in and be God's gift to law enforcement, that doesn't happen for everybody. So if you
Yeah.
find yourself struggling, it's okay. Take it as a
Yeah.
as a lesson, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. And really, like, no one is God's gift to policing. And even if it appears so, even if it appears that someone has that like perfect veneer and they're so polished, they're so squared away, like
Right.
nobody's like a perfect, jack of all trades, right? Like ultimately, everyone has deficiencies, everyone has things they can work on. The difference, I think, is exactly what you've highlighted in your example, whereas you recognized your mistake, you took ownership, where already you've given a couple examples where you took extreme ownership and then you just dove in. So we know oftentimes there's people that wallow and then they just
Yes.
they kind of just sink down in that, right?
Hmm.
Whereas you can take the initiative, and failure is inevitable. But
That's right.
the trick is failing quickly, not failing just to fail, because we know those types too, and then they wallow in
Right.
it, right? Or they,
Right.
they project that out, and they take that victimhood. But it's just recognizing you can minimize the failure through preparation and your determination, right? And then pick yourself up quickly.
That's right. That's right. I believe you talked about learned helplessness.
Yeah, that
Um,
was a recent episode, well, from the time of this recording, yeah, with retired LT Tom Ovens, with regard to, yeah, legality. So I think that, yeah, episode 153 for listeners. Hmm.
yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point of not staying where you're at, but persevering through whatever you're going through. We don't have to be helpless. We're not called to just be defeated. We have to get back up, man, and get back in the game. You
Yeah.
may, you may have to take a time out and reassess. And that's one thing that I've learned, is that sometimes it's important for us to get on the balcony as leaders and just take a quick moment to assess the problems, and then uh, jump right back into the game. There's a framework that I like to use um, to help me with problem solving issues, and it's a 3-step process. It's called reset, regroup, and rebound.
Mhm.
Reset, regroup, and rebound. And it's simply resetting the clock. Hey, you know what? I messed up. I made a mistake. Like you said, extreme ownership. Shout out to Jocko. Um,
Mhm.
you know, take that hard look in the mirror and say, you know what? I messed up, and this is on me. And then you regroup by um, taking inventory of the resources that you have around you. Come up with a really good game plan. Don't get stuck in paralysis by analysis, but look at what's around you that you can use to your advantage, and then regroup, and then last but not least, rebound. I liken it to the game of basketball. Once once you grab the rebound, that means you're on offense, baby. Let's go. Fast break. Run the play. Let's kick the outlet, and then next thing you know, you'll be able to throw the alley oop and then dunk that bad boy. What
Hmm.
I mean by that is execute the best way that you can. Sometimes, even in the execution phase, things won't go right, but fix it on the fly. Don't quit and don't give up.
What are you going to do with that halftime break, right? Like that locker room speech. Are you going to give yourself that speech, or are you going to just sit down with a towel on your head, right?
Right.
And yeah, absolute shout out to Jocko. And as he would say, like that kind of recalibrator in his
Yes.
his clip, reload. But all the same things, we're talking about.
Right.
Speaking of all that, you talked about some of these mistakes, and to elevate your career and be not just a supervisor, but a larger scale command staff manager. What are some of the things that led you to lead? Because I love your humble disposition. I think we need more of it in leadership. Frankly, I think it's growing, but it's definitely not that traditional personality type that seeks out the servant leadership that you're talking about,
Hmm.
and that brought you into the career in the first place.
Hmm. What made me want to promote was to make a difference. I've had a variety of mentors that I looked up to throughout my career, and they did some phenomenal things. But the reason why they did phenomenal things was because they were at the rank that they worked really hard to obtain. And so I saw that, and I felt like I could help the organization in a more effective way by promoting. Uh, and even that was tough.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take the sergeant's test 3 times in order to get promoted, but every time I learned a lesson. And I was very discouraged after the second time that I didn't make it. But I talked to one of my mentors, and he said, "Ray, if you give up now, that means that you never really wanted it. That
Mm-hmm.
means that you weren't serious about it. So you have to do it again." And that third time really worked out on the sergeant's side. And then I had to take the lieutenant's test twice in order to make it. And matter of fact, we were getting to the deadline of the expiration of the list, and I just I figured that it wasn't my time, and I had to take this one 3 times again. I'd already sent in my letter of intent to take it a third time, but fortunately, I got the call and made it to the lieutenant rank. And so to kind of bring things full circle, I was actually the first one out of my academy class to make lieutenant. And I don't say that in a bragging type of way. I just say that again to reinforce the perseverance theme of my journey.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you to come back and retake that test, multiple promotions and not accepting no, because this came up, and I'm not sure exactly when this episode will air in relation to an episode with retired Chief and Under Sheriff Chris Shum, but we're talking about that when people put their name in the hat, and you see a lot of different responses, right? You see people that do well,
Mhm.
you see people that don't do as well as they want, where they have that moment where they regroup, right? They rebound, like you are demonstrating that you have demonstrated, and you're teaching other people to do, or they just say like, nah, I guess fill in the blank. And I wrote an
Right.
article about that for Police One, which is just like, it's not trying to throw shade, but it's just saying like, hey, like make sure you really want it and make sure your narratives are accurate. Because if someone does the
Right.
test one time and they learn more about the job and they learn about the aptitude necessary, and they're like, actually that isn't me, cool, that's totally fine. Like the last thing we need is leaders that aren't really interested, or it's not really what they thought it'd be. That's totally fine. There's a lot of value in doing whatever you do as a line leader or your
Absolutely.
other assignment, right? They just take on that narrative because it's easy to be defensive. It's easy to do that, or even project out and respond in this really inappropriate way, right? You start blaming other people, and then
Hmm.
as the retired chief said, he's like, you basically, he's seen a lot of examples where someone's response proved it correct, like proved the test
Right.
process and the lack of promotion as a meaningful, valuable outcome, because they weren't ready for it, and they weren't going to be a good leader,
Right.
and they've proven it. So no, I love that ability to share that. man, I just saw on LinkedIn there was someone else I'm connected with that's a higher ranking command staff
Hmm.
individual, and he had an acting role, but he actually posted how he was just wrapping up his acting time and he didn't get the job, the permanent job,
Hmm.
and a lot of
Hmm.
reflection points. And it was very informative. It was very
Yes.
insightful. It was very
Yes.
humble and transparent
I think I saw
and
that.
vulnerable. Yeah. So I'm like, that's fantastic, man. Like, we
Right.
need people to do that because it doesn't do us as an industry or as a culture or organizations any
That's right.
good to
That's right.
appear like we're perfect. And
Right.
that's a lot of what this project's about. So thank you for sharing that, man.
Right. Absolutely. I totally agree. To take the humble road and to draw learning points from an extended time as acting and to not get the job. I think that says a lot about that person's character because other people might be like, oh well, forget the department, screw the department, and become
I've seen it.
disgruntled and
Yeah.
oh yeah, I've seen it too, and I think that's really valuable. And like you said, that's missing from the concept of leadership today. Is what I didn't get the position. Maybe I wasn't ready for the position. What did I do wrong, and what can I do better when that position rolls back around? It's very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I,
Yeah.
and I imagine faith has a factor in that for you. It certainly does for me, as far as you mentioned timing. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I have work to do. Maybe the organization wasn't ready. Maybe we all have work to do, right? Like, it's a
Right.
shared thing. We're all one tiny, tiny piece of fill in the blank, the department, the industry, the nation, the world.
Right.
Um, yeah. And I think that that's really healthy to recognize the opportunity for humility and like, what can I learn from this?
Right. I think it's important for me as I reflect on my journey to realize that everything happens for a reason. My goal and my desire is to please God 100%, regardless of how far I make it in my current role. I want God to be pleased with my leadership, and I want to be able to make a difference. I really want him to order my steps. That's the bottom line. The scripture says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. And I can tell you, he has directed mine. He continues to direct mine to this day. He continues to show me forgiveness, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, I love that. I hear in, through talking to you prior and connecting with you, there's just such this groundedness. And perhaps that's where I want to kind of pivot and talk about you outside of the job.
Okay.
You mentioned coming up singing and wellness. So wherever you'd like to go, I'd like to hit on both those things, but
Okay.
how that's helped you navigate as a police professional, but also in the course of your life.
In 2005, I had a wild hair to audition for American Idol. Obviously I'm not the type of guy that wants to be front and center or anything like that, but I felt like, hey man, this was an opportunity to use the gift that I had through singing. So I auditioned and I made it to the top 100 uh, to Hollywood as an American Idol contestant. Fun fact about me and about my experience there, uh, Chris Daughtry was my roommate. And to this day,
Oh,
man,
no
I
way.
feel like he got robbed. He
That
was
was season 3, right?
season 5.
5,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I
man.
remember that season. He's
He
legit.
was Oh yeah, he's awesome. So, but no, I went to American Idol and was blessed with the opportunity to go to California for the first time because I hadn't been there before. And so while I was in the academy, I approached the supervisors about singing the national anthem for um, our graduation. And so they said, okay, well, we'll have you audition. And so I walked into the room and they had a table set up and it was 4 people sitting there just like what I had previously experienced in
Mm,
American Idol. And by the time I finished, they gave me the golden ticket, uh, so to speak, to sing for the Academy
nice.
graduation. And so I did that, and then it led to not only being able to sing for my academy graduation, but for uh, other academy graduation ceremonies, receptions, and things of that nature for the department. I'm very, very thankful that the department allows me to do that.
Hmm.
And so, it has really taken a life of its own and grown to the point where last year, well, let me back up a little bit. Several years ago, the president for the Fallen Officers Association was looking for a police officer to sing for Law Enforcement Appreciation Day for the Texas Rangers. And my name was thrown out there in the discussion. And so she came to a memorial where I was singing, and she recorded it and gave it to the Texas Rangers, and they gave me the thumbs up for that. And so I had that started my stadium singing career.
Hmm.
And you talking about being nervous. Oh my gosh, I could feel my heart beating through my vest. And I just kept telling myself, man, don't forget the words. I don't want to be YouTube famous for the wrong reasons.
The wrong
But
reasons, yeah.
yeah, the good Lord carried me through it. And then the Rangers called me back periodically to sing for different games. And so that actually led up to the pinnacle of my performances, which included singing "God Bless America" for the World Series last year for the world champion Texas Rangers. That's right.
Mm,
And then
congrats.
I was also blessed to sing the national anthem for the Cotton Bowl last year, and I believe there were approximately 80,000 people there, and I mean, it was a surreal moment. When I started singing the national anthem, my goal was to go to Jerry's World and sing at AT&T Stadium, and I'm so blessed that that took place last year. I was so grateful, and I just appreciate everyone's encouragement along the way because I couldn't do that alone. And I'm very, very thankful for that. So,
Yeah,
um, you talked
I love
about
that, man.
wellness. I'm sorry.
I said, I love that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple parts that I just kind of want to highlight. One is that,
Okay.
well, one, I'm curious, how did it feel auditioning for, you know, to sing for the Academy officials compared to American Idol?
Oh man, it was pretty intimidating.
Yeah,
As you
I
know,
figured.
going to the academy, since it's a paramilitary organization, they're very
Oh, yeah.
serious. All the time. It's no
Hmm.
smiles. It's they're not friendly during the time, and so that was very intimidating. But I would have to say, singing in front of Randy, Paula, and Simon was pretty scary. Um,
Yeah, both. Yeah, I can see that.
I know some people may not even remember that because the show has changed so much since then, but it was quite intimidating and surreal at the same time. But I took a deep breath and just once I hit that first note, I, the nerves kind of went away, and so I was thankful to be able to make it.
Yeah, man. No, that's so cool. And I mean, as a prior choir geek, yeah, I
Okay,
feel that
all right.
because yeah, I'm good at a karaoke, and that's about it these days. And when I say good, I'm like passable. Like I'm pretty sure I'm not making anyone's ears hurt, but just for fun. But
It's all
um,
good, man.
yeah, there is that level of vulnerability, man. You talk about like putting yourself out there.
Oh yeah,
You're wearing a vest, and that thing's not going to protect you from this
that's right.
thing that you're doing. So I
Well
think that's
said.
so cool, man. I think that's so cool, and I'm gonna echo the appreciation that you give your agency and your agency leaders for allowing you to do it in uniform because that's such a thing. And I feel very grateful that my agency is supportive of me in this project because
Right.
others are like, hey, like we get it, it's constructive, whatever. Well, scrub it. Nothing of your patch, nothing of your mentioning of
Hmm.
like where you work,
Hmm.
and that's okay. That's okay. But what I
Yeah.
like is that there's opportunities and agencies that the leadership's actually behind it because they see the value not just for the industry but for the community because it absolutely
Right.
helps and these other ways of like interacting with the community. Like, hey, here's a cop who's also a singer, a musician and a
Right.
person, and he can create
Right.
this art, and we can share it. We can feel this. We can connect through the national anthem. I think that's just part of the greater thing that we're trying to do. And so whether it's people getting more grace for taking time off because they coach locally, they got to
Hmm.
hop off their shift a little early, and the
Hmm.
agency helps them work through that. Or shout out to Greg Grogan with the Overwatch Collective. Like, his agency is very supportive because he's a patrol traffic cop SWAT dude. He's doing all this stuff,
Hmm.
and he's trying to run this nonprofit or help run this nonprofit to help first responders and military folks get therapy. Like,
Right.
that's
Right.
fantastic. I know that there are some administrations that they'd be like, I don't want to hear about it. You do it on your own time, 100% period. Like, don't let
Right.
it affect anything you do. And I don't think that's the right answer either. So, no, I think that's
Right.
great, man.
I appreciate Chief Al Jones for allowing me to sing, and it's a part of the community policing philosophy, humanizing the badge and allowing people to see who you are and see your gifts and your talents outside of law enforcement. So I think it's a great PR tool. It's a wonderful thing to be able to sing and give the audience a sense of patriotism. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. What have you realized that between that and like, and I'll just say it, but like your horseback riding and these things, you talked about getting out, connecting with nature, like things like singing and things like hopping on your horse. Like, what have those done for you and your own decompression and your own wellness?
Man, it's a great coping mechanism. Unfortunately, in law enforcement, we don't really cope well with the stress as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was given an opportunity to be a part of our mounted unit several years ago. Going through mounted school was a challenge. It was a lot of fun. I didn't really grow up riding horses and things like that, but later on in life, I had the opportunity to discover horses and to learn a lot, and I'm still learning to this day. I don't claim to be a trainer or anything like that. I have close friends that do that, and they're great at it. But being a part of the mounted unit for a period of time, and now being able to use and to ride my mount for myself just as a coping mechanism is great. He is a he's a quarter horse. His name is Big Boy. He has a really sharp personality. Last year I had the opportunity to be a marshal in the stock show parade in Fort Worth for the first time. And prior to that, we had some bumps and bruises. And for the first time since I've had him, he bucked me off. I mean, just I had a ticket to the rodeo, and I didn't even know I was in the show, man.
Oh my
I
gosh.
got I completely got dusted, but I got back up on him and took him to the stock show, and we had our ups and downs in there, but we made it through. And so, because of work and school and working extra jobs, I hadn't been able to ride him for nearly a year. And so, because things slowed down slightly for me, I made an intentional and concerted effort to try to take care of my mental health by riding Big Boy on the weekends. And it's been great, man. It's been a really good experience. I feel my anxiety lowering down because it forces you to deal with your issues when you're in the saddle. We have a couple of acres out here in the country, and so as I ride along our property, I have these times where it's like, okay, is he gonna buck me off again, or is it? No, no. I have to rely on my training. I have to be a confident rider because he's looking to me for leadership.
Mm.
He's looking to me to be a confident rider, and if I'm anxious and if I am terrified and thinking about what if and having these unrealistic thoughts, he's gonna feel that, and so he helps me to stay calm, and I help him to just enjoy the ride. because I've learned that if he doesn't have a job, then he's kind of mischievous. But
Mm-hmm.
I love him. That's my dude. And so there's lessons in leadership that I've learned just from getting back into the saddle again. You have to be confident if something goes wrong, and if you get bucked off, then you got to get back up in the saddle, man. You have to jump back
Yeah.
in there. And if you come across a situation where things get kind of dicey, and you have to go uh, on a rocky path, or if you have to go down a hill and come back up a hill, and you can't see the bottom, guess what? You got to be a confident rider in the saddle, and it's the same thing in life. We may not be able to see the steps in front of us. We may not be able to understand the reason why we're going through certain things, but we have to be confident in the saddle, and we have to be show a sense of a surety as we persevere through this journey of life, man. But that has
Yeah.
helped me out a ton, just getting back into the saddle and learning lessons from old big boy.
Yeah, man. I love that. There's a few things that I really want to focus on. And one is like I hear this necessity for presence. Like you have to be present in what you're doing or
Right.
things go awry real quick. And that's the same for anything we do. Like how we do one thing's how we do everything. I also heard that intention piece where I've had something very similar. Like I have things that I love to do. I love to get out in the woods. I love to hit a
Hmm.
trail. But
Hmm.
a lot of times I spend so much time on this, and I spend so much time on these things I really care about. And in some ways, they are
Right.
hobbies, but truly they're essentially an extension of work. I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about
Right.
how to help the industry and help my people and lead and promote wellness. So it's really not the same. But I'll have
Right.
to sometimes put it in my schedule, like trail. Like that's how I put. Like it's
Yes.
a day off, and I put trail. And I'm like, oh,
That's right.
I've been podcasting for a couple hours. Okay, afternoon. I made a commitment. I got to do it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I love to highlight like it's hard at times, but we have to be regimented about it, intentional.
Right.
Another thing that everything you're saying about horses, and I haven't been around horses a whole lot, so I'll admit most of my life, like I didn't get it. I'm like, I don't get this connection to horses. Like I get the connection
Hmm.
to dogs. Like we needed
Hmm.
dogs to survive and evolve to a certain level. But then I've had you know, horse enthusiasts, equestrians, right? Be like, dude, you realize that it's the same for horses? Like horses like drove civilization in so many
That's right.
ways, like, and
That's right.
so and then when I've been around them or I've been around people that love horses, I'm like, okay, I do start to get it because
Hmm.
everything you said about you and Big Boy and that feeling of anxiety, like it's 100% the same with dogs, and we
Right.
would say all the same things with canine. Like if your head is somewhere else and you're frustrated or you're unsure, that travels all the way down the lead. That's what we would say
Right.
in tracking, and so like sometimes same thing you said, he could be mischievous, man.
Hmm.
Police dogs, they have attitudes and for good reasons, right? But they
Yeah.
are not machines, and sometimes they don't want to work, sometimes they want to do their own thing, and
Hmm.
you gotta figure it out. Like every dog's different, every handler's different, you're a team. And so I feel this connectedness where and I wonder for this too, like you talked a lot about the confidence and I suppose the metaphor for leadership. And I'm also assuming that there's that degree of grace and release as well. So
Yes.
it's kind of like that duality and that challenge because you can't control everything, but you gotta know
That's
what you're
right.
doing it, why you're doing it, and in some ways just kind of like, Jesus take the wheel, right?
That's right, man. It boils down to two essential aspects: trust and safety.
Mm,
You have to trust that this animal is not going to run you into the fence line, uh, and you have to give them a sense of safety because you know where you want to go, and you're not going to harm them. The horse is instinctually geared for flight. They're such a beautiful animal, and they run in order to survive. And in fact, yesterday, as I was riding, I could kind of feel him wanting to run and wanting to take off. So we just stopped. Sometimes we have to rehearse being still, and sitting in the saddle and being quiet. And
Mm.
so we stopped right where we were. I took a deep breath, and then next thing you know, he takes a deep breath. I mean, we're both inhaling and exhaling together and getting on the same page and on one accord. So he has to trust me, and I have to trust him, and I have to give him a sense of safety to realize that he's not going to be harmed while we're riding and we're traveling this journey together. I'm gonna take care of him. I'm gonna make sure that he's secure, and whatever comes up, we're gonna handle it together. We're gonna work through it together.
Yeah, man, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but you compared it to lessons in leadership, and that's the same
Mhm.
for leadership, right? Like
That's
if
right.
you're the rider and your horse could be the team that works below you, or your horse could be the
Hmm.
organization, right? Like
Hmm.
you have to have trust, and I think that's a common theme in policing where people don't feel trust. They don't feel psychologically safe from the boss or from admin,
Right.
we'll call it whatever, right? But ultimately that is the challenge, and it requires vulnerability and taking a chance at times. Like I'm not saying be reckless with trusting, to all abandon, but when
Oh,
leaders
absolutely.
demonstrate some trust, like followers need to demonstrate some too, and the union needs to demonstrate some too,
That's right.
or else you're
That's
all
right.
going to be clammed up and tightened up, and everyone's going to be rigid, and no one's going to be able to move or build or take any steps forward because everyone's literally just eyeballing everyone, like who's going to make the first move, who's going to f
Hmm.
me over. But that is the challenge, I think, for us in mid management, where we can see
Yes.
so much good intent, and a lot of times it's just miscommunicated or it's misstepped, and we got to back it up and try to find ways to build
Yes.
trust, try to build uh, some cohesion here and there.
And one way to build trust is through allowing your people to have a part of the decision making process. I learned that unless you have weigh in, you don't have buy in. You have to allow your people who are doing the actual work to have some at least have some voice within the process. And I know that you can't always do that, but I think that it shows teamwork. It shows it gives your people a chance to be heard because sometimes they just want to be heard. And if the command staff has enough trust to listen to the line officers, then I think that's a great thing. And then when they give you suggestions, let's take a really good look at it and don't just say, all right, let's file this away. Let's really consider what they're saying, because oftentimes there's some extremely intelligent and insightful people who do this job every single day,
Mm-hmm.
and we really have to listen to them and take into account their perspective, because they are the ones that cause the vision to come true. um,
Yeah,
the higher leaders in the organization, they forecast the vision, and then the line workers make it become a reality. And so
100%.
I think there has to be a strong sense of communication there. And I like the way you
Mm-hmm.
put it with the union groups, the associations, the command staff. Everybody has to work together. And I think that takes a delicate balance of communication. Like you
Yeah, it's
said,
tough.
it is tough because everyone has their own objectives, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to get certain things done, but we all have to work together. And I'm very grateful to work for an organization that does that really well.
Yeah, no, you put it so well, and I think that for leaders, it is being open-minded and then relaying that. And maybe, yeah, sure, you can't take every good idea from the good idea fairy and just run with it. It has to
Right,
be grounded in
right,
something. Oftentimes,
right.
things you could do and things that I've tried to do are ask more questions, right? Okay, like
Mhm.
that sounds good. I trust you. You're the one doing the job every day. I haven't done that task for years. What does that
Right.
look like? What would it require? From my seat, I see it requires this. Can you help me do some legwork on this to find this out?
Right.
Sometimes, unfortunately, you got someone with a good idea and they don't want to do any work to mobilize it or put anything on paper. I find it's been helpful to recognize the people that are willing to do some work, because otherwise you have people coming to you with 50 ideas and half of them are going to conflict with the other half. The other thing that I've tried to work through my sergeants with is projecting something like a prompt or a task and then asking for feedback and then coming back and relaying options, right? Maybe my
Right.
sergeants come up with 6 fantastic ideas, but 2 of them are feasible, or 2 of
Mm-hmm.
them I could integrate together. And we talk through
Mm-hmm.
that because, yeah, those closest to the ground are the ones doing the work. So they are going to see problems in a different way than we are. And like you said, 100%, anyone can have a vision, but it
Right.
takes leadership to create the followership to enact the
Yes,
vision, or else it's
that's
just
exactly
words
right.
on paper, right?
That's exactly right. 100% true. And what I find myself doing as a subordinate leader is telling the story for my guys. As the covert investigations commander, a lot of the things that they do it are in the shadows. They
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's a certain level of secrecy to what they do, but even in that, I don't want the story not to be told that they they work very, very hard. They do. They work extremely hard. You may not be able to see it all the time, but they work really hard. They're dedicated and devoted to getting narcotics off of the street. I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of the sergeants that that work very closely with them. You know, the covert world is different. You can't just uh, throw up a hotspot map and then address crime like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be in touch with the street. You have to have that communication with your CIs. You have to know drug trends and things on a national level. And so my guys do a really good job of being in tune with what's going on in the community and serving in that way. And so I feel like it's on me to tell the story and tell the narrative of how hard they're working. And if our command staff does not know, then that's on me. That's my fault, and I have to do a
Yeah.
better job telling them about the good work that they're doing.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love that real world example for up and coming leaders or people that are sergeants, mid managers, or even executives, where it takes intention. Sometimes a perfect example is what you just described, where you can't just send out a department email. You can't just say what
Right.
all went into this case. Like that's
Yeah.
public disclosure. Like you're going to ruin the whole case and
Right.
everything to come, right? And so you can't put a social media post up, whereas you
Right.
could for that awesome patrol officer that
Hmm.
did that community engagement thing and had this awesome
Right.
kind of pursuit that ended well, right? You can't do that. And so
Right.
I love that example. Ray, we've covered a lot of ground. I do really want to ask you about what else you have cooking up and how else you're helping people in the industry outside of your kind of 9 to 5, or I'll say 9 to 9 because sometimes that's how
Yeah.
the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. So this year I have launched my own consultation firm. It's called Command Leadership Mastery Services. I believe that America is due for an overhaul in the concept of leadership. And here's why. We have too many leaders out there that are selfish. We look at leadership as a bump in pay and having more perks, which to a certain degree is true, but with that rank comes responsibility. And we have to marry the humility with the responsibility in leadership. And I just want to be a part of that with my consultation firm. It gives me a chance to sit down with people one on one in like you said, a psychologically safe environment to talk about their leadership journey and their goals. I utilize the background of working in the social services as well as in peer support in order to set up an environment for my clients to where we can sit down for 45 minutes to an hour and be very transparent about their leadership journey and the problems that they're going through. And I don't claim to be a guru or an expert or anything, but I I do listen, and I want to give them an opportunity to vent and to talk about certain things that they're going through, so that they can come up with solutions. And so my job is to ask certain questions to prod them towards success. So as a part of my consultation firm, I do leadership coaching, not just with law enforcement, but with anybody who wants to be a better leader in their career or in their life and their family. We'll go through certain pre-screening questions, and based on the answers to those questions, we'll come up with a leadership plan. And for 9 to 12 months, we'll work through that. And I promise you, I'll be here with you every step of the way. We're going to work through it. You can cry on my shoulder. I mean, even though we may meet virtually or in
Mm-hmm.
person, I'm here for you. And because I think that as leaders, we feel like we always have to have the answers and we always have to be right. Sometimes you need that person to talk to bounce ideas off of that's not necessarily in competition with you. So my goal is to help leaders get from their current level in their journey to go far beyond where they could possibly go. And so after you complete your training, however long that may take, I'll give you a certificate of completion, and you can use that for whatever you like, job placement or whatever the case may be. So my goal is to serve. My goal is to serve leaders and to help shift the paradigm of leadership in our society. So that's one tier of CLMS. Another tier of CLMS is doing safety assessments. My goal is to work with schools, churches, and businesses to um, complete 10 dimensions of safety and to do target hardening for their business, so that their customers can feel safe, their staff can feel safe, their visitors can feel safe. And so I look at those 10 dimensions, and we sit down together and we'll go through a comprehensive overview of what can be improved. I have a traffic light system. Red are things that you need to fix right now, like yesterday. Yellow are things that, okay, we can get by with that for a little while, but it needs improvement. And then the green are things that you're doing right. But as we all know, we can improve in every aspect of our lives, even the things that we're doing right. So with the safety assessment system, my goal is to allow people in houses of worship or in commercial businesses or in schools to feel safe and to concentrate on the reason why they're there. I also serve as a law enforcement liaison to those businesses because you know how it is. Cops know how to speak cop language,
Mm-hmm.
and so I will serve as a voice for that business and try to gather intelligence about common crime trends or things that we need to be on the lookout for in order to keep the business safe. And so I also do monthly follow-ups with the business, the school, and with the house of worship, so that they can stay on track with their goals of keeping the business safe. So the last tier of CLMS is the national anthem performances. If you would like to start your event with a genuine sense of patriotism and pride, there's no better way than to have the national anthem performed. If you need a national anthem singer, I'm your guy. It makes me feel very proud to do that. That's my consultation firm, CLMS, Command Leadership Mastery Services. And if there's anything that I can do, please let me know.
I'm going to go in reverse. First off, is there something on your website, or can people look you up on YouTube to see you perform at one of your prior big events?
I am on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I've got a couple of performances on there. You can find me on TikTok at CLMS 2326. I'm also on Instagram, Command LMS. The best route to find me or to get a hold of me is through LinkedIn. I'm also on X as well.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
No, thank you
So
for that. And the links and where to find Ray will be in the show notes. But also, just a quick note, yeah, we need more safety and security. And so I love that people are doing it like yourself. The last thing that we need to worry about as individuals, parents, civilians, in the right, citizens, is whether people can worship, whether people can learn, whether kids can
right,
be safe in a learning environment in a school. And so I'm a huge proponent of that, private and public all working together in that. And then, yeah, as far as the leadership, we need more. That's a lot of why we do all this stuff we do with Blue Grit. And it is to
right.
say we've all had those bosses that you described, those bosses that are bosses just because fill in the blank that serve them,
Hmm.
not the whole, not the group, not the organization. And I love the fact that you actually highlight you're not a guru. Neither am I. That's the point. Like if someone is
Yeah,
calling themselves a guru, then you should probably run. Like I've had someone
right.
call me a wellness guru. I took it as a compliment, but I'm like, no,
Hmm.
I'm just a guy that knows some things. And there's a lot of guys and gals that know a lot of things, and we keep having conversations, and we keep, kind of raising all ships. So
That's
yeah, I
right.
love that you're in the space doing it, for the same reasons that I'm doing it. Because the fact of the matter is, after we've had a conversation for about an hour and people really get a sense of you and get to know you, there's going to be a ton of people that would never call me for a one-on-one, but absolutely like,
Mhm.
oh, Ray, I feel like I get him and I think he's going to get me too. And that's
Yeah.
the sauce. It's like we just need more. And so I really appreciate you and your time sharing your story, sharing your leadership example and your outlook and insights. And I just appreciate being connected and excited to share you with other people.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be on your podcast. This is my first one, so
You
if
did
I
great.
if
You did great.
it's not perfect, then y'all don't beat me up. Just
No,
help
yeah.
me out. But yeah, this is great. This is awesome. That's one thing that I'm really big on is helping people to avoid the pitfalls that I endured coming up in law enforcement and in life. And if there's anything I can do to help anybody, then I'm going to do it at the sake of my own embarrassment. And I feel like we can all learn from each other. We have to be a sponge. I've always got my nose in a book, and I want to encourage other leaders to do the same. Man, if you're not reading, if you're not studying the craft of leadership, then you're definitely missing the mark. Excuse me. I just want to encourage everybody to read and to lead in humility. And I appreciate this opportunity today, man. This is awesome. This was fun,
No,
actually.
thanks so much. I'll second that, man. No, you did great. And I can remember some of my early podcast appearances and certainly my own where I was like, man, it's a little clunky, but that's the whole point. And just an example, I mean, that's kind of a theme that you discussed this whole time, but absolutely. I love the leaders are readers. I heard that the first time from a retired SWAT sergeant and training sergeant of mine, but he was in Bill Flowers. He's been on a prior episode, but when he's that like archetype, is that like square jawed, like super rigid, like
Yeah,
talks a mile a
yeah.
minute, says really funny, vulgar things. But then when he said that, I
Mhm.
was like, man, okay, reading's cool. And I
Yes,
and I haven't always been a great reader, and I'm still not like as great of
me
a
too.
reader as I'd like. But I think
Yeah,
I love that you said that because I think that the key is continuing to learn. And fortunately, these days, shoot, there's so many free resources, including Blue Grit Radio. Share it with your friends and family. But that's the
that's
whole
right.
point.
That's
Like
right.
some people of us, we have audiobooks, we have
Hmm.
podcasts, we have videos. You can be watching if you're a visual learner. You can watching these world class videos on YouTube about leadership, about ownership, about developing your
Right.
mindset while you're on the treadmill. Like that's great. And so continue to learn and grow. And yeah, thanks so much, Gray. It's been a pleasure.
I definitely want to give John Maxwell the credit for that one. That's where I heard that from
Mm,
about leaders being readers. So,
there you go.
uh, it's a lot of great authors out there. We mentioned Jocko Willink and David L. David Marquet, and
Hmm.
uh, I mean, There's so many great
Yeah.
authors out there. RTL Jones Jr. I mean, it's a lot of great authors. So
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Ray.
hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.